Marcus Washington wiped the sweat from his forehead as he loaded the last box of plumbing supplies into his worn pickup truck. The summer heat in Atlanta was unforgiving, and his old truck's air conditioning had given up months ago. At 34, Marcus had weathered more storms than most men his age, but he never let the hardships show when his 8-year-old daughter Zoe was around. "Daddy, can we get ice cream after you finish work?" Zoe asked from the passenger seat, her bright smile making Marcus forget about his aching back and the bills piling up at home. "We'll see, sweetheart. Daddy's got a big job today, and if it goes well, maybe we can celebrate," Marcus replied, starting the engine that coughed to life after a few tries. Marcus had been running his small plumbing business for 3 years now, ever since he lost his job at the construction company. The transition hadn't been easy, especially as a single father trying to make ends meet while caring for Zoe. Her mother, Sandra, had left when Zoe was only 2 years old, claiming she wasn't ready for the responsibility of motherhood. Marcus had been both mother and father ever since, and he wore that responsibility like armor. The job today was at a mansion in Buckhead, one of Atlanta's wealthiest neighborhoods. Mrs. Henderson, an elderly widow, had called about a burst pipe in her basement that was flooding her storage area. The pay was good, enough to cover Zoe's school supplies for the upcoming semester, and maybe even that new backpack she'd been eyeing at the store. "Look at all these big houses, Daddy," Zoe marveled as they drove through the tree-lined streets where homes sat on sprawling lots behind iron gates. "One day, baby girl, we'll have our own nice house too. Daddy's working hard to make sure you have everything you need," Marcus said, reaching over to squeeze her hand. Marcus had always been honest with Zoe about their situation without burdening her with adult worries. He taught her the value of hard work, kindness, and never giving up on dreams. Despite their modest 2-bedroom apartment and secondhand clothes, Zoe was one of the happiest kids Marcus knew. When they arrived at Mrs. Henderson's house, Marcus was struck by its grandeur. The colonial-style mansion boasted manicured gardens, a circular driveway, and columns that reached toward the sky. He parked his truck carefully, making sure not to drip any oil on the pristine driveway. "You stay in the truck and read your book while Daddy works, okay? I'll check on you every hour," Marcus instructed, gathering his tools from the back. Mrs. Henderson greeted him at the door, a kind woman in her 70s with silver hair and gentle eyes. She led him to the basement where water had indeed flooded a significant area, damaging several boxes of what appeared to be family heirlooms and photographs. "Oh my, this is worse than I thought," Mrs. Henderson sighed, surveying the damage. "Don't worry, ma'am. I'll have this fixed and help you move everything to dry ground. Water damage can be tricky, but we caught it early enough," Marcus assured her, already assessing the problem. The burst pipe was behind a wall that would require some demolition to access properly. Marcus explained the situation to Mrs. Henderson, who gave him permission to do whatever was necessary. As he worked, cutting through drywall and navigating the maze of pipes, Marcus couldn't help but think about his own dreams. Before Zoe was born, Marcus had planned to become an engineer. He'd been studying at Georgia Tech, working nights to pay for school, when Sandra got pregnant. When she left, Marcus had to drop out to work full-time and care for his daughter. Sometimes, late at night, he still wondered what his life might have been like, but he never regretted the choice. Zoe was his world. 3 hours into the job, Marcus had successfully located and repaired the burst pipe. He was cleaning up the area when Mrs. Henderson appeared with a pitcher of lemonade and sandwiches. "You've been working so hard, and it's terribly hot down here. Please, take a break," she insisted. Marcus gratefully accepted the refreshment, stepping outside to check on Zoe and invite her in from the heat. Mrs. Henderson was delighted to meet Zoe, commenting on how well-behaved and bright she seemed. "Your father is doing excellent work," Mrs. Henderson told Zoe. "You should be very proud of him." "I am proud of my daddy. He can fix anything," Zoe replied with conviction, making Marcus's chest swell with pride. As Marcus continued working, Mrs. Henderson and Zoe chatted in the kitchen. The elderly woman was charmed by Zoe's curiosity and intelligence, and she found herself sharing stories about her own grandchildren who lived far away. "Do you help your daddy with his work?" Mrs. Henderson asked. "Sometimes I hand him tools, but Mostly I just try to be good so he doesn't worry about me. Daddy works really hard so we can have a nice life, Zoe explained with the wisdom of a child who understood more than she should have to. Mrs. Henderson's heart went out to this little girl and her hard-working father. She could see the love between them and recognized the challenges they faced. When Marcus finished the job in the late afternoon, she insisted on paying him more than his quoted price. Mrs. Henderson, I can't accept this much. We agreed on a fair price, Marcus protested. Young man, you've done excellent work, cleaned up beautifully, and shown such dedication. You have a wonderful daughter, and I can see you're doing everything right. Please accept this, she insisted, pressing the extra money into his hands. Marcus felt tears threaten his eyes as he accepted her kindness. It was enough to not only buy Zoe's school supplies, but also to make a dent in their rent, which was already a week late. Thank you, ma'am. Your kindness means more than you know, Marcus said genuinely. As they drove home, Zoe was excited about the ice cream Marcus had promised. They stopped at a local shop where Zoe chose a double scoop of strawberry, her favorite, and Marcus allowed himself a small coffee ice cream. Daddy, why was that nice lady so happy to meet me? Zoe asked between licks. Because you're special, sweetheart. You're smart and kind, and people can see that. Mrs. Henderson probably doesn't get to meet many kids, so you brightened her day, Marcus explained. I liked her too. She showed me pictures of her grandkids and said they live far away. That must make her sad, Zoe observed. Marcus marveled at his daughter's empathy. Despite their own struggles, Zoe always seemed to notice when others might be hurting or lonely. It was a quality that made him incredibly proud and also worried him sometimes. He wanted her to maintain that compassion while also protecting herself in a world that wasn't always kind. That evening, as Marcus tucked Zoe into bed in their small apartment, she looked up at him with serious eyes. Daddy, I know we don't have as much money as some people, but I think we're really rich, she said. What makes you say that, baby girl? Because we have each other, and we love each other so much. And you're the best daddy in the whole world. That's better than having a big house, right? Marcus kissed her forehead, his heart full despite the challenges they faced. You're absolutely right, Zoe. We are rich in all the ways that matter most. After Zoe fell asleep, Marcus sat at his small kitchen table, organizing his receipts and planning his next jobs. The extra money from Mrs. Henderson would help, but he still needed to find more work to stay afloat. He'd been considering taking a job with a larger plumbing company, which would mean steady pay but less time with Zoe and giving up his dream of building his own successful business. His phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. Washington Plumbing, Marcus speaking, he answered professionally. Mr. Washington, this is Detective Ray Johnson with the Atlanta Police Department. I'm calling because we had an incident today, and we need to speak with you about your whereabouts this afternoon. Marcus's blood ran cold. His hands began to shake as he gripped the phone. I'm sorry, what kind of incident? I was working at a client's house all afternoon. Sir, there was a robbery at a jewelry store in Buckhead around 3 p.m. today. A witness reported seeing a black male in work clothes driving a pickup truck leaving the scene. We're just following up on all leads. Marcus felt the world spin around him. He looked at the receipt Mrs. Henderson had given him, time-stamped at 4:30 p.m., proving he'd been at her house during the alleged crime. Detective, I can prove I was working during that time. I have receipts, and my client can verify I was there all afternoon. My 8-year-old daughter was with me the entire time. We'd like you to come in tomorrow morning to answer some questions and provide that documentation. This is just routine, Mr. Washington. If you have an alibi, this will be cleared up quickly. After hanging up, Marcus sat in his kitchen, staring at his hands. This wasn't the first time he'd been questioned about crimes he didn't commit. Being a young black man running a business in Atlanta meant dealing with suspicion and assumptions regularly. But this time felt different, more serious. He thought about Zoe sleeping peacefully in the next room, trusting that her daddy could handle anything. Marcus knew he had to be strong, had to fight whatever was coming, because his daughter needed him. She was counting on him to be there, to protect her, to provide for her. Marcus gathered all his paperwork from the day, including Mrs. Henderson's receipt and the invoice she'd signed. He also found the business card she'd given him, asking him to call if she needed any future work. Tomorrow, he'd need to contact her to verify his alibi, something that embarrassed him but was necessary. As he prepared for bed, Marcus said a prayer, something he'd been doing more often since becoming a single father. He prayed for strength, for justice, and for protection over his daughter. He prayed that whatever was happening wouldn't tear apart the life he'd worked so hard to build for them. The next morning came too quickly. Marcus made Zoe breakfast and arranged for their neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, to watch her while he went to the police station. He didn't want to worry Zoe, so he told her he had an important meeting about work. "Will you be back to pick me up from Mrs. Rodriguez's house?" Zoe asked, sensing something was different in her father's demeanor. "Of course, sweetheart. Daddy will always come back for you. I love you more than all the stars in the sky," Marcus said, hugging her tightly. As Marcus drove to the police station, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change dramatically. He'd worked so hard to build a reputation, to create stability for Zoe, and now it felt like it could all disappear because of someone else's crime. The police station was imposing, a gray building that seemed to loom over him as he approached. Marcus straightened his shoulders, checked that he had all his documentation, and walked through the front doors, ready to fight for his freedom and his daughter's future. Detective Johnson was a middle-aged black man who greeted Marcus with professional courtesy. Marcus felt a slight relief, hoping that perhaps this detective would understand his situation better than others might. "Mr. Washington, thank you for coming in. This really should be straightforward if you have the alibi you mentioned," Detective Johnson said, leading Marcus to an interview room. Marcus laid out all his documentation on the table: the signed invoice, Mrs. Henderson's receipt, photos he'd taken of the plumbing work, and even the receipt from the ice cream shop where he and Zoe had gone afterward. Detective Johnson examined each piece of evidence carefully. "This all looks legitimate, Mr. Washington. Let me call Mrs. Henderson to verify your story, and then we should be able to close this matter." As the detective made the call, Marcus sat quietly, his hands folded, trying to remain calm. His entire future seemed to hang in the balance of this phone conversation. "Mrs. Henderson? This is Detective Johnson with the Atlanta Police Department. I'm calling to verify that Marcus Washington was doing plumbing work at your house yesterday afternoon." "Yes, ma'am. From what time to what time?" "And his daughter was with him?" "I see. Thank you very much for your cooperation." Detective Johnson hung up and looked at Marcus with what appeared to be relief. "Mr. Washington, Mrs. Henderson confirms everything you've told us. She says you were there from noon until about 4:45 p.m. and that your daughter was with you the entire time. She also wanted me to tell you that you did excellent work and she's recommending you to her neighbors." Marcus felt his shoulders sag with relief, but Detective Johnson wasn't finished. "However, I need to inform you that this case isn't closed. The actual perpetrator 3 weeks had passed since Marcus's encounter with the police, and he tried to put the unsettling experience behind him. His business was picking up thanks to Mrs. Henderson's glowing recommendations to her neighbors in Buckhead. For the first time in months, Marcus felt like he might actually be getting ahead rather than just surviving. On this particular Tuesday evening, Marcus was driving home from a job in Decatur with Zoe beside him, both of them tired but content. They'd stopped for Chinese takeout, a rare treat that Zoe had been requesting for weeks. The fortune cookies made her giggle, especially when hers read, "A kind heart opens many doors." "Daddy, what does your fortune say?" Zoe asked, breaking open Marcus's cookie. "It says, 'Your compassion will be rewarded when you least expect it,'" Marcus read aloud, smiling at the coincidence. "That's perfect for you, Daddy. You're always helping people," Zoe said matter-of-factly. They were taking their usual route home along Peachtree Road when Marcus noticed something unusual ahead. 2 small figures were walking along the shoulder of the busy road as darkness began to fall. As they got closer, Marcus realized they were children, and they appeared to be alone. "Daddy, are those little kids walking by themselves?" Zoe asked with concern. Marcus slowed down, his parental instincts kicking in. The children looked to be around 6 or 7 years old, both girls, and they were clearly distressed. One was crying, and the other was holding her hand, looking around frantically. Without hesitation, Marcus pulled over to the side of the road and put on his hazard lights. "Stay in the truck, Zoe," he instructed, getting out slowly so as not to frighten the children. As he approached, Marcus could see that the girls were identical twins. They had long brown hair and were wearing matching pink dresses that were now dirty and torn. Both were crying, and they looked terrified. "Hey there," Marcus said gently, keeping his distance so they wouldn't feel threatened. "Are you girls okay? Where are your parents?" The twins looked up at him with wide, fearful eyes. One of them spoke through her tears. "We can't find our daddy. We were at the park, and then we got lost, and we've been walking forever." Marcus's heart went out to them immediately. He thought of Zoe in the truck, and how terrified he would be if she were lost and alone like this. "What are your names?" Marcus asked, crouching down to their eye level. "I'm Emma, and this is my sister Sophia," the more talkative twin replied. "We're 7 years old, and we live on Maple Street, but we don't know how to get home." "Okay, Emma and Sophia. My name is Marcus, and I'm here to help you. I have a little girl too, and she's in my truck right there. Her name is Zoe. Would you like to meet her?" The twins looked toward the truck where they could see Zoe's face pressed against the window, watching with concern. "Is she nice?" Sophia asked shyly. "She's very nice, and she's about your age. Why don't you come meet her, and then we'll figure out how to get you home to your daddy." Marcus led the twins to his truck, opening the door so they could see Zoe clearly. "Hi," Zoe said sweetly. "My daddy's really good at helping people. He'll help you find your daddy." The twins seemed to relax, slightly seeing another child. Marcus helped them into the truck, making sure they were comfortable and safe. "Now, can you tell me more about where you live? Do you know your daddy's name or phone number?" Marcus asked. "Our daddy is Judge Thompson," Emma said. "He's a very important man who works at the courthouse. We live in the big white house with the red door on Maple Street." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Judge Thompson. He'd heard that name before, but he couldn't immediately place where. "Do you know your daddy's first name?" "His name is Judge Robert Thompson, but everyone calls him Judge," Sophia added. "Okay, that's very helpful. Do you remember your phone number?" The twins looked at each other and shook their heads. "We're not supposed to talk to strangers, but you seem nice, and you have a little girl," Emma explained. Marcus understood their confusion and fear. He needed to get them home safely, but he also needed to make sure he handled this situation properly. These were clearly children from a wealthy family, and given his recent experience with the police, he wanted to be extra careful. "Girls, I'm going to call the police to help us find your daddy, okay? That's what we do when children are lost. We call the people whose job it is to help." Marcus called 911 and explained the situation. The dispatcher was professional and efficient, taking down all the information about the twins and their father. She assured Marcus that they would have someone there shortly, and that they had already located Judge Thompson's address. While they waited, Marcus tried to keep the twins calm and comfortable. Zoe shared her leftover egg roll with them, and they began to open up about what had happened. "We were at Piedmont Park with our nanny, Miss Carmen," Emma explained. "But Miss Carmen was talking on her phone a lot, and we got bored. We saw some ducks by the pond and wanted to get closer. When we turned around, Miss Carmen was gone, and we couldn't find her anywhere," Sophia continued. "We looked and looked, and then we tried to walk home, but everything looked different." Marcus realized that these girls had been missing for hours. Their father must be worried sick. He also wondered about this nanny who had somehow lost track of 2 7-year-olds. "How long were you walking?" Marcus asked gently. "Forever and ever," Emma said dramatically. "The sun started going down, and we got really scared. Some cars drove by, but we remembered what Daddy taught us about not talking to strangers. You girls did the right thing. Your daddy taught you well," Marcus assured them. 20 minutes later, police cars arrived with lights flashing. Marcus stepped out to meet the officers, explaining exactly what had happened and showing them his identification. The twins seemed nervous about the police cars, so Marcus reassured them. "These officers are going to help get you back to your daddy," he told them. One of the officers, a woman named Officer Martinez, was particularly good with children. She knelt down to talk to the twins while her partner spoke with Marcus. "Mr. Washington, we've contacted Judge Thompson, and he's on his way here. He's been searching for his daughters for the past 4 hours with multiple police units. You did the right thing stopping to help, the officer told him. I couldn't just drive past children who needed help, Marcus replied simply. Well, Judge Thompson is very grateful. These girls have been through enough trauma for one day, and you made sure they stayed safe. As they waited for Judge Thompson to arrive, Marcus learned more about the twins' story. Their mother had passed away from cancer 2 years earlier, leaving Judge Thompson to raise them alone with the help of various nannies. The current nanny, Miss Carmen, was relatively new and had apparently been distracted by a personal phone call when the twins wandered off. Daddy's going to be so worried, Sophia said quietly. But he'll be happy too, because you're safe now, Zoe told her new friends. When Judge Thompson's black Mercedes pulled up behind the police cars, Marcus could see a tall, distinguished-looking white man in his 40s jump out before the car had completely stopped. His face was etched with worry and relief as he saw his daughters through the truck window. Emma, Sophia, he called out, his voice breaking with emotion. The twins scrambled out of the truck and ran to their father, who swept them up in his arms, holding them tightly as tears streamed down his face. I was so scared, Daddy, Emma cried. I thought we'd never see you again, Sophia added. You're safe now, my angels. You're safe, Judge Thompson whispered, kissing their heads repeatedly. After the initial reunion, Judge Thompson approached Marcus, who was standing respectfully nearby with Zoe. Sir, I can't begin to thank you enough for what you've done, Judge Thompson said, his voice thick with emotion. I'm Robert Thompson. These officers tell me you found my daughters walking alone and kept them safe. I'm Marcus Washington, and this is my daughter Zoe. I just did what any parent would do. I couldn't drive past children who needed help, Marcus replied, extending his hand. Judge Thompson shook it firmly, looking Marcus directly in the eyes. What you did was extraordinary. You could have just called 911 and driven on, but you stopped, gained their trust, and made sure they were safe. That took courage and kindness. Your daughters are wonderful girls. They were scared but brave, and they clearly love you very much, Marcus said. Mr. Washington, please, let me do something to thank you. Can I pay you a reward? Take you to dinner? There must be something. Marcus held up his hand politely. That's not necessary, Judge Thompson. Seeing your girls back in your arms is thanks enough. I'm just glad they're safe. Judge Thompson was struck by Marcus's sincerity and lack of expectation. In his position, he'd encountered many people who wanted something from him, but this man genuinely seemed to expect nothing in return for his kindness. At least let me give you my card, Judge Thompson insisted. If you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to call me. Marcus accepted the business card out of politeness, not intending to ever use it. As the police finished their report, and everyone prepared to leave, Emma and Sophia came over to say goodbye to Zoe and Marcus. Thank you for helping us, Emma said, giving Marcus a shy hug. Thank you for being our friend, Sophia added, hugging Zoe. Maybe we can see each other again sometime, Zoe said hopefully. Judge Thompson overheard this and made a mental note. These were good people, and his daughters had clearly connected with this kind man and his daughter. As everyone went their separate ways, Marcus felt good about what had happened. He'd been able to help 2 scared children get back to their father, and that felt more rewarding than any paying job he'd done recently. Daddy, you were like a superhero tonight, Zoe said as they finally headed home. We just did the right thing, sweetheart. When we see people who need help, especially children, we help them if we can. What Marcus didn't know was that Judge Thompson had taken note of his name and would remember this encounter. He also didn't know that Judge Thompson made a point of researching the people who came into his life, especially those who showed kindness to his daughters. The next day, Judge Thompson's assistant did a background check on Marcus Washington. What she found was a hard-working single father with no criminal record, a struggling small business, and a reputation for honesty and reliability. Judge Thompson filed this information away, touched by the character of the man who had helped his family. Meanwhile, Marcus went back to his normal routine, working hard to build his business and care for Zoe. He mentioned the incident to Mrs. Henderson during a follow-up visit, and she was impressed by his actions. That doesn't surprise me one bit, Marcus. You're a good man with a kind heart, she said. Those little girls were lucky you were there. A week later, Marcus received an unexpected phone call at work. The caller identified himself as James Morrison, Judge Thompson's assistant. Mr. Washington, Judge Thompson wanted me to reach out to see if you might be interested in doing some plumbing work at his residence. He has several projects that need attention, and after what you did for his daughters, he'd prefer to hire someone he trusts. Marcus was surprised but pleased. The work would be welcome, especially from someone who could probably afford to pay promptly and might lead to other referrals. I'd be happy to come give him an estimate, Marcus replied. Excellent. Would this Saturday afternoon work for you? Judge Thompson wants to be there personally to discuss the projects. Marcus agreed to the appointment, not realizing that this job would lead to much more than just plumbing repairs. Judge Thompson had been impressed not only by Marcus's kindness, but also by his character, and he was the kind of man who believed in acknowledging and supporting good people when he encountered them. On Saturday, Marcus arrived at Judge Thompson's house on Maple Street, a beautiful colonial home with the red door the twins had mentioned. Judge Thompson greeted him personally, and the twins ran out to see him and ask about Zoe. She wanted to come, but she's at a friend's birthday party, Marcus explained. As Judge Thompson showed Marcus around the house, pointing out various plumbing issues that needed attention, he also shared more about his life. He talked about how difficult it had been raising the twins alone since his wife's death, how much he worried about their safety, and how grateful he was for Marcus's intervention. You know, Marcus, may I call you Marcus? You remind me of someone I knew growing up. My father always taught me to judge people by their actions, not their circumstances. What you did for Emma and Sophia showed me the kind of man you are. Marcus appreciated the judge's warmth and openness. As they discussed the various projects around the house, it became clear that this would be substantial work that could keep Marcus busy for several weeks. I'll give you a fair estimate, Judge Thompson. I believe in honest pricing for quality work, Marcus said. I'm sure you do. And please, call me Robert when we're not in formal settings. Marcus had been working at Judge Thompson's house for 2 weeks, and what started as a professional relationship had gradually developed into something resembling friendship. Robert insisted that Marcus and Zoe join him and the twins for lunch on Saturdays, and the 3 girls had become fast friends despite their different backgrounds. During these lunch conversations, Marcus learned that Robert was more than just a judge. He was a man who genuinely cared about justice and fairness. Robert had grown up in a middle-class family and worked his way through law school, eventually being appointed to the bench because of his reputation for integrity and wisdom. You know, Marcus, I've been thinking about expanding my circle of trusted contractors, Robert said one Saturday as they watched the girls play in the backyard. I have several friends and colleagues who need reliable work done, and I'd love to recommend you. I appreciate that, Robert. Word-of-mouth referrals are the lifeblood of my business, Marcus replied, grateful for the opportunity. Actually, there's something else I wanted to discuss with you. I know you mentioned that you had to leave college when Zoe was born. Have you ever thought about going back to finish your engineering degree? Marcus was surprised by the question. I've thought about it, but with running the business and raising Zoe, I don't see how it would be possible. Besides, I can't afford tuition. There are programs for working parents, evening classes, financial aid. I could help you research options if you're interested. A man with your intelligence and work ethic shouldn't let circumstances prevent him from achieving his dreams. The conversation planted a seed in Marcus's mind, but he remained focused on the immediate challenges of daily life. He had no idea that his peaceful world was about to be shattered in a way that would test every relationship he'd built. The trouble began on a Wednesday evening in late September. Marcus was at home helping Zoe with her homework when his phone rang. The caller ID showed Detective Johnson's number, the same detective who had questioned him about the jewelry store robbery months earlier. Mr. Washington, this is Detective Johnson. I need you to come down to the station for questioning regarding a new case. Marcus felt his stomach drop. What kind of case, Detective? There was an armed robbery at a convenience store on Monday night. The clerk was shot and is in critical condition. We have a witness who says they saw someone matching your description fleeing the scene. Detective, that's impossible. I was home with my daughter on Monday night. We ordered pizza and watched a movie together. I have receipts, and my neighbor can verify we were home. Bring whatever documentation you have. I need you here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. After hanging up, Marcus sat in his kitchen, his hands shaking. This was more serious than the previous questioning. Someone had been shot, and somehow his name was connected to it again. He looked at Zoe, still working diligently on her math problems, trusting that her father could handle whatever problems arose. Marcus called Mrs. Rodriguez next door, who confirmed she had seen him and Zoe through their kitchen window that Monday evening around the time of the alleged crime. He gathered the pizza receipt and searched through his phone for any other evidence of his whereabouts. That night, Marcus barely slept. He knew he was innocent, but he also knew that didn't always matter in the justice system. He'd heard too many stories of innocent men being convicted because they couldn't adequately prove their innocence. The next morning, Marcus dropped Zoe off at school and made his way to the police station with a heavy heart. Detective Johnson met him with a more serious demeanor than before. "Mr. Washington, this situation is more complex than our last encounter. The victim is still in critical condition, and there's political pressure to solve this case quickly. The convenience store is in a high-profile neighborhood, and people are scared." Marcus laid out his evidence just as he had before. The pizza receipt timestamped at 7:30 p.m., photos on his phone showing him and Zoe watching TV together that evening, and Mrs. Rodriguez's contact information for verification. "Detective, I understand the pressure you're under, but I'm innocent. I was home with my daughter, and I can prove it." Detective Johnson examined the evidence, but looked troubled. "Mr. Washington, I believe you, but we have a witness who specifically identified you from a photo lineup. They said they saw you running from the store to a pickup truck matching the description of yours. That's impossible. Can I see this witness? Can they identify me in person?" "That's not how it works, sir. Based on the witness identification and the similarity in your physical description to the perpetrator, I'm going to have to arrest you." Marcus felt the world spinning around him. "Detective, please. Call Mrs. Rodriguez. Check the pizza place's security cameras. I'm innocent. We'll investigate all of that. But right now I have to follow procedure." As Detective Johnson began reading Marcus's rights, all Marcus could think about was Zoe. Who would pick her up from school? Who would take care of her if he couldn't prove his innocence quickly? "Detective, my daughter is 8 years old, and she has no one else. Can I make arrangements for her care before you process me?" Detective Johnson paused, recognizing the genuine anguish in Marcus's voice. "You have the right to one phone call." Marcus's first thought was to call Mrs. Rodriguez, but he realized she couldn't care for Zoe long-term if this situation dragged on. Then, he remembered the business card in his wallet, Judge Robert Thompson's card. With trembling hands, Marcus dialed the number on the card. Robert's assistant answered, and Marcus asked to speak with the judge urgently. "Marcus? What's wrong? You sound distressed," Robert said immediately upon taking the call. "Robert, I'm at the police station. I'm being arrested for a crime I didn't commit, and I need someone to take care of Zoe. I don't have any family, and I don't know who else to call." "Slow down. What are you being charged with?" Marcus quickly explained the situation while Detective Johnson waited patiently. Robert listened without interruption, his legal mind already analyzing the situation. "Marcus, don't say another word to anyone without a lawyer present. I'm going to arrange for an attorney to meet you at the station. As for Zoe, Emma, and Sophia are at school until 3 p.m. I'll pick up all 3 girls, and Zoe can stay with us until we get this sorted out." "Robert, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. You helped my daughters when they needed it, and now I'm helping yours. Give me Zoe's school information, and don't worry about her." Marcus provided Zoe's school details and Mrs. Rodriguez's contact information for verification. He also gave Robert the spare key location so he could get Zoe's clothes and belongings. "Marcus, I want you to know that I believe you're innocent. I've gotten to know you over these past weeks, and the man I know would never commit such a crime. We're going to fight this." After ending the call, Marcus was processed and placed in a holding cell. The reality of his situation began to sink in. He was in jail, accused of a serious crime he didn't commit, and his 8-year-old daughter was now dependent on the kindness of a man he'd only known for a few weeks. Meanwhile, Robert Thompson was making phone calls of his own. He contacted his friend David Chun, one of the best criminal defense attorneys in Atlanta, and explained the situation. "David, I need you to represent someone. He's a good man who's been wrongly accused, and I'll personally vouch for his character." Robert, you know I don't usually take recommendations like this, but if you're vouching for him, I'll take the case. What are the charges? Robert explained what he knew about Marcus's situation. David agreed to meet Marcus at the police station within the hour. Next, Robert called the school to arrange picking up Zoe. The principal was initially hesitant to release a child to someone not on her emergency contact list, but Robert's position as a respected judge and his explanation of the situation eventually convinced her to allow it after speaking with Mrs. Rodriguez for verification. When Robert arrived at the school, he found Zoe waiting anxiously in the principal's office. She looked small and scared, clearly sensing that something was wrong. "Hi, Zoe. I'm Emma and Sophia's daddy. Do you remember me?" Zoe nodded, her eyes wide with worry. "Where's my daddy? He was supposed to pick me up." Robert knelt down to her level, speaking gently. "Your daddy had to take care of some important business, so he asked me to pick you up. You're going to stay with Emma and Sophia for a little while until your daddy can come get you." "Is my daddy in trouble?" Zoe asked with the intuition of a child who had learned to read adult emotions carefully. "Your daddy is a good man, and sometimes good people have to deal with difficult situations. But he loves you very much, and he asked me to make sure you're safe and happy until he can be with you again." At the Thompson house, Emma and Sophia were delighted to have Zoe for an extended visit. They showed her to the guest room, which Robert had quickly prepared with some of Emma's extra clothes and toys. "Why does Zoe look sad?" Emma asked her father privately. "Zoe's daddy is dealing with some grown-up problems, and she's worried about him. I need you girls to be extra kind and help her feel welcome here." "We will, Daddy. Zoe's our friend, and friends help each other," Sophia declared. Back at the police station, Marcus met with David Chun, who immediately impressed him with his sharp questions and thorough understanding of the legal system. "Marcus, Judge Thompson has told me about your character, and he believes strongly in your innocence. Based on what you've told me about your alibi, I think we can get you out of here quickly. But I need you to be completely honest with me about everything." Marcus recounted every detail of Monday evening, from picking up Zoe from school to going to bed. David took notes and made calls to verify Marcus's story. Within hours, David had spoken with Mrs. Rodriguez, obtained the pizza place's security camera footage showing Marcus's truck in his apartment complex parking lot during the time of the crime, and gathered phone records showing Marcus's location through cell tower data. "Detective Johnson, my client has a solid alibi supported by multiple forms of evidence. I'm requesting his immediate release," David announced confidently. Detective Johnson reviewed the evidence and spoke with his superior. The witness identification was shaky at best, and Marcus's alibi was ironclad. By evening, the charges were dropped, and Marcus was released. The first thing Marcus did was call Robert to let him know he was free and to check on Zoe. "Marcus, thank God. Zoe is fine, but she's been worried about you. She's having dinner with the girls right now. Why don't you come over when you're ready, and we can talk about what happened." When Marcus arrived at the Thompson house, Zoe ran into his arms, tears streaming down her face. "Daddy, I was so scared. I didn't know where you were. I'm sorry, baby girl. Daddy had to take care of some problems, but everything is okay now. I'm here, and I'm never going to leave you." Over dinner, Robert and Marcus discussed the day's events. Marcus was overwhelmed by the kindness Robert had shown, not just in taking care of Zoe, but in providing legal representation and support. "Robert, I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done today. You didn't have to help me, especially not to this extent." "Marcus, what happened to you today was wrong. An innocent man was arrested based on flimsy evidence, and it could have ruined your life and traumatized your daughter. I couldn't stand by and let that happen." "But why? You barely know me." Robert considered his answer carefully. "I've been a judge for 15 years, and I've seen too many cases where good people get caught up in a system that doesn't always work fairly. I've also gotten to know you over these past weeks, and I know your character. When I see injustice happening to someone I respect, I have to act." What neither man realized at that moment was that this experience had created a bond between them that would soon be tested in ways they couldn't imagine. Marcus's arrest had been just the beginning of a series of events that would challenge everything both men believed about justice, friendship, and the power of standing up for what's right. 2 months had passed since Marcus's arrest and release, and life had settled into a new rhythm. True to his word, Robert had helped Marcus navigate the legal system to have his record completely cleared and had even assisted him in filing a civil rights complaint against the police department for the wrongful arrest. The case was gaining media attention, positioning Marcus as a symbol of the injustices faced by hard-working black fathers in America. David Chun had taken on Marcus's case pro bono at Robert's request, and they were building a strong lawsuit against the city. More importantly for Marcus's daily life, Robert had made good on his promise to help with referrals. Marcus's business was thriving, with more work than he could handle from Robert's network of friends and colleagues. The friendship between the two families had deepened as well. Zoe, Emma, and Sophia were inseparable, and Marcus found himself spending most weekends at the Thompson house. Robert had even converted his basement into a playroom for the girls, complete with a craft area where Zoe felt completely at home. You know, Marcus, watching you with Zoe reminds me why I went into family law before becoming a judge, Robert said one Saturday evening as they watched the girls perform a play they had written together. What made you switch to criminal court? Marcus asked. I wanted to make a bigger impact on justice and fairness. But sometimes I wonder if I make more of a difference in individual cases like yours or in the broader systemic issues I deal with on the bench. This conversation would prove to be prophetic in ways neither man could imagine. On a Tuesday morning in early December, Marcus was installing a new water heater for one of Robert's colleagues when his phone rang. The caller ID showed Detective Johnson's number, and Marcus felt his stomach drop. Mr. Washington, this is Detective Johnson. I need to speak with you about a serious matter. Can you come to the station immediately? Detective, what's this about? I thought we resolved everything from my previous arrest. This is about a different case, Mr. Washington. A very serious case. I need you here within the hour. Marcus's hands were shaking as he packed up his tools. He called Robert immediately, but was told by his assistant that the judge was in court and couldn't be disturbed except for emergencies. Please tell Judge Thompson that Marcus Washington called and that I need to speak with him urgently about a police matter, Marcus said. When Marcus arrived at the police station, Detective Johnson's demeanor was grave. He was accompanied by another detective, a stern-looking white man in his 50s. Mr. Washington, this is Detective Williams. We need to talk to you about the murder of Antonio Rodriguez. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Murder? Detective, I don't know anyone named Antonio Rodriguez. Mr. Rodriguez was found shot dead in his apartment last night. A witness has identified you as someone they saw leaving the building around the time of the murder. That's impossible. I was at home with my daughter last night. We made dinner together and helped her with a school project. Detective Williams leaned forward aggressively. Mr. Washington, we've had you connected to several crimes over the past few months. This pattern of behavior suggests escalating criminal activity. Pattern of behavior? I was cleared of all those previous charges. I'm innocent. Nevertheless, we need you to come with us for questioning. You're not under arrest at this time, but we strongly advise you to cooperate fully. Marcus realized he was in serious trouble. A murder charge was entirely different from robbery allegations. He asked to call his lawyer before answering any questions. David Chun arrived at the station within an hour, looking concerned. Marcus, don't say anything else. Let me talk to the detectives first. After speaking privately with the detectives, David returned to Marcus with a troubled expression. They have an eyewitness who claims to have seen you leaving the victim's apartment building at 11 p.m. last night. The witness picked your photo out of a lineup and says they're certain it was you. David, that's impossible. I was home with Zoe from 6 p.m. onward. We never left the apartment. I believe you, but we need to prove it. Do you have any receipts, phone records, anything that can verify your location? Marcus thought frantically. I ordered groceries online yesterday afternoon for delivery today. The delivery confirmation should show I was home to receive them this morning. Also, I helped Zoe with her science project, and I took pictures of her presentation to send to her teacher. David made notes. That's a start, but we need more. The police are going to want to search your apartment and truck. Do you have any problem with that? No, of course not. I have nothing to hide. What Marcus didn't know was that while he was being questioned, Robert Thompson had been assigned to preside over a high-profile murder case that had just been fast-tracked through the system due to public pressure. The victim, Antonio Rodriguez, had been a community activist working to improve police-community relations, and his murder had sparked outrage in the Latino community. Robert was in his chambers reviewing the case file when his assistant knocked on the door. "Judge Thompson, you had an urgent message from Marcus Washington about a police matter." I tried calling him back, but his phone goes straight to voicemail. Robert felt a chill as he looked at the case file on his desk. The defendant's name jumped out at him, Marcus Washington. For a moment, Robert couldn't breathe. The man he had come to consider a close friend, someone he had vouched for and supported, was accused of murdering Antonio Rodriguez. Robert's mind raced as he tried to process this information. According to judicial ethics, Robert should immediately recuse himself from the case due to his personal relationship with the defendant. But, as he read through the initial police reports, Robert's legal mind began analyzing the evidence. The case appeared to be built on a single eyewitness identification, with no physical evidence connecting Marcus to the crime. The witness claimed to have seen Marcus leaving the building at 11 p.m., but Robert knew Marcus well enough to find this claim highly suspicious. Robert faced an impossible ethical dilemma. If he recused himself, Marcus would be assigned to another judge who didn't know his character. If he stayed on the case, he would be violating judicial ethics by presiding over a case involving someone he knew personally. Meanwhile, at the police station, Marcus was being formally charged with murder in the first degree. Despite David's best efforts to secure bail, the prosecutor argued that Marcus was a flight risk and a danger to the community given the serious nature of the charges. "Your Honor," the prosecutor said to the magistrate during the bail hearing, "the defendant has been connected to multiple crimes over the past several months, showing a pattern of escalating criminal behavior culminating in this senseless murder." David objected strongly. "Your Honor, my client was cleared of all previous charges. Those arrests were wrongful, and he has an ironclad alibi for the time of this alleged crime." The magistrate set bail at $500,000, an amount far beyond Marcus's means. As Marcus was being processed into the county jail, he felt his world collapsing. All he could think about was Zoe, who would be getting out of school soon with no one to pick her up. He was allowed one phone call, and he used it to reach Mrs. Rodriguez. "Marcus, where are you? Zoe called me from school saying you didn't pick her up," Mrs. Rodriguez said with concern. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm in jail. I've been charged with murder, but I'm innocent. Please, can you pick up Zoe from school? I'll try to get word to Judge Thompson about what's happening." Mrs. Rodriguez, who had seen Marcus's dedication to his daughter every day for years, didn't hesitate. "Of course I'll get Zoe. Marcus, I don't believe for one second that you could hurt anyone. We'll figure this out." When Robert finally learned that Marcus had been arrested and charged with murder in his courtroom, he was devastated. He immediately called David Chun. "David, I just learned that Marcus has been assigned to my court. I should recuse myself, but I'm concerned about him getting fair treatment from another judge." "Robert, ethically, you have to recuse yourself. But I understand your concern. This case feels like a setup, and I'm worried about prosecutorial overreach." "What's the evidence against him?" "One eyewitness identification. No physical evidence, no motive, nothing else. It's weak, but murder cases make everyone nervous." Robert spent that evening agonizing over his decision. He believed deeply in Marcus's innocence, but he also believed in the integrity of the judicial system. If he recused himself, he would be abandoning his friend to a potentially biased system. If he stayed on the case, he would be violating the ethical standards that governed his profession. The next morning, Robert made his decision. He would recuse himself from the case, but would do everything in his power to ensure Marcus received fair treatment. He called the chief judge and explained the situation. "Robert, you're absolutely right to recuse yourself. I'll assign Judge Patricia Williams to the case. She's fair and thorough." "Thank you. I know Judge Williams will handle this appropriately." What Robert didn't mention was that he planned to use his influence and connections to ensure Marcus had the best possible defense and that the case received proper scrutiny. Meanwhile, Marcus spent his first night in jail in a state of despair. He was housed in protective custody due to the high-profile nature of the case, which meant 23 hours a day in a small cell with minimal human contact. All he could think about was Zoe and how terrified she must be. David Chun visited Marcus the next morning with updates on his situation. Marcus, Judge Thompson has recused himself from your case due to your friendship. Judge Patricia Williams will be presiding instead. Is that good or bad? Marcus asked. Judge Williams is fair, but tough. She doesn't have a personal relationship with you, which means she'll judge the case purely on evidence. That could work in our favor since the evidence against you is weak. David, I need you to understand something. I would rather spend the rest of my life in prison than let anything happen to Zoe. She's everything to me. I know, Marcus. And that's exactly why we're going to prove your innocence and get you back to her. David had been working around the clock to build Marcus's defense. The alibi was strong, with delivery confirmations and digital evidence placing Marcus at home during the time of the murder. More importantly, David had discovered that the eyewitness had a history of mental illness and drug addiction that cast doubt on the reliability of their identification. Marcus, I think we can get you out of here, but it's going to take time. The prosecutor is playing politics with this case, using it to show they're tough on crime. What about Zoe? Who's taking care of her? Judge Thompson has arranged for her to stay with his family while you're her 3 weeks in a Marcus's incarceration. Robert Thompson had uncovered information that made his blood boil. Through careful investigation and conversations with colleagues in the police department, he had discovered a disturbing pattern that went far beyond Marcus's case. Detective Williams, the aggressive detective who had questioned Marcus, was under internal investigation for planting evidence in several cases involving black defendants. More troubling, the eyewitness in Marcus's case, Jerome Phillips, had been arrested multiple times by Williams and had always been released without charges after providing testimony in other cases. Robert sat in his chambers, staring at the evidence he had compiled. The pattern was clear. Williams had been systematically targeting innocent black men, using Jerome Phillips as a manufactured witness to build false cases. Marcus had become a target after his first wrongful arrest brought him to Williams's attention. Robert picked up his phone and dialed David Chin's number. David, I've uncovered something significant about Marcus's case. Can you meet me at my office this evening? We need to discuss this privately. Of course, Robert. What did you find? Evidence of a conspiracy involving Detective Williams and the witness against Marcus. This goes much deeper than we thought. That evening, Robert shared his findings with David, who was stunned by the scope of the corruption. Robert, this is explosive. If we can prove this conspiracy, not only will Marcus be exonerated, but Williams could face federal charges for civil rights violations. The problem is proving it. We need more than just suspicious patterns. We need hard evidence or someone willing to come forward. What about the other victims? If Williams has been doing this for years, there must be other innocent men who were convicted based on his false evidence. Robert had already thought of this. I've identified at least 6 cases over the past 3 years that follow the same pattern. All black defendants, all convicted primarily on testimony from Jerome Phillips or other repeat witnesses Williams uses. We need to contact those families and see if they're willing to speak out. This could be the key to exposing the entire operation. While Robert and David worked to uncover the conspiracy, Marcus was struggling to maintain hope in jail. He had been moved to general population after the initial security concerns subsided, and life in county jail was harsh and dehumanizing. Marcus's cellmate was a young man named Deshaun who was awaiting trial on drug charges. Deshaun had quickly recognized that Marcus didn't belong in jail and had appointed himself as Marcus's protector. Man, you don't talk like you belong here, and you don't act like you belong here. What they got you for? Deshaun asked one evening. Murder. But I didn't do it. I've never hurt anyone in my life, Marcus replied honestly. That's what everyone says. But with you, I believe it. You talk about your daughter the same way my pops talked about me before he got locked up. Good fathers don't go around killing people. Marcus appreciated Deshaun's protection, but he was most concerned about Zoe. David brought news from Robert that she was thriving with the Thompson family, but Marcus knew she had to be suffering emotionally. How is she really doing? Marcus asked David during one of his visits. Marcus, she's doing better than you might expect. Judge Thompson says she cries for you at night, but during the day she's resilient. Emma and Sophia have been incredible friends to her, and Robert treats her like his own daughter. I hate that she's going through this. She shouldn't have to see her father in jail, shouldn't have to wonder if he's coming home. She believes in you completely, Marcus. When Robert tried to explain the situation gently, Zoe said, "My daddy didn't hurt anyone. He helps people. Her faith in you is absolute." This faith was what kept Marcus going through the darkest moments of his incarceration. He spent his days reading legal books from the jail library, trying to understand his case and help with his own defense. Meanwhile, Robert's investigation was yielding results. He had made contact with 3 families of men convicted based on Detective Williams's cases, and all were willing to speak with David Chun. One case particularly stood out. Michael Jenkins, convicted of armed robbery 2 years earlier based solely on Jerome Phillips's testimony, was now serving a 15-year sentence. Robert arranged to meet with Michael's wife, Patricia Jenkins, who had been fighting for her husband's innocence since his conviction. "Mrs. Jenkins, I believe your husband may be innocent, and his case may be connected to another wrongful prosecution," Robert explained during their meeting. Patricia began to cry. "Judge Thompson, I've been telling everyone that Michael was framed, but nobody would listen. He was working that night, and I had receipts and witnesses, but the jury believed the witness instead." "Tell me about the witness testimony." "This man Jerome Phillips said he saw Michael running from the store, but his description didn't even match my husband. Jerome said the robber was wearing a red jacket, but Michael doesn't even own red clothes. Still, the jury convicted him." Robert made detailed notes of Patricia's account. The pattern was becoming undeniable. Williams would identify black suspects who fit general descriptions. Jerome Phillips would provide eyewitness testimony, and the prosecution would secure convictions despite weak evidence. "Mrs. Jenkins, would you be willing to testify about your husband's case if it would help expose this corruption?" "Judge Thompson, if there's any chance this could free my husband and prevent other innocent men from going through what we've experienced, I'll do whatever it takes." Robert was building a case, but he needed something more concrete. That breakthrough came from an unexpected source: Jerome Phillips himself. Phillips had been arrested again, this time for possession of methamphetamine. Facing a lengthy sentence due to his criminal history, he was placed in the same county jail as Marcus. When Deshawn learned that Phillips was the witness testifying against Marcus, he arranged a confrontation. "You the one who's lying on my cellmate?" Deshawn asked Phillips in the recreation yard. Phillips, clearly under the influence of withdrawal and fear, broke down. "Man, I didn't want to do it. Detective Williams said if I didn't testify, he'd make sure I went away for 20 years on my drug charges." "So you're admitting you lied?" "I never saw that dude anywhere near that murder. Williams showed me his picture and told me what to say. He's been making me do this for years." Deshawn immediately reported this conversation to Marcus, who told David Chun during his next visit. "David, this is it. If we can get Phillips to admit he lied, we can expose the whole conspiracy." David wasted no time arranging to meet with Jerome Phillips. With Robert's help, they also contacted the FBI, who had been investigating Detective Williams for other suspected civil rights violations. The FBI meeting took place in a secure room at the jail. Jerome Phillips, facing federal charges if he didn't cooperate, agreed to tell the truth about his false testimony. "Detective Williams has been forcing me to lie in cases for 3 years," Phillips admitted to the federal agents. "He threatens to plant drugs on me or make sure I get maximum sentences if I don't cooperate. I've lied in at least 8 cases, including Marcus Washington's." "Are you willing to testify to this in court?" the FBI agent asked. "Yes, sir. I'm tired of destroying innocent people's lives. It's been eating at me, especially when I see how that man talks about his little daughter. I can't keep doing this." The FBI immediately launched a full investigation into Detective Williams's activities. Within days, they had gathered enough evidence to arrest Williams on federal civil rights violation charges. The news of Williams's arrest sent shockwaves through the Atlanta Police Department and the legal community. The prosecutor in Marcus's case, faced with the revelation that their key witness had admitted to lying, immediately moved to dismiss all charges against Marcus. On a crisp Friday morning in January, Marcus Washington walked out of the county jail a free man. Robert Thompson was waiting for him with Zoe, Emma, and Sophia. The reunion between father and daughter brought tears to everyone's eyes, including the media representatives who had gathered to cover the story. "Daddy," Zoe screamed, running into Marcus's arms. "I'm here, baby girl." I'm here, and I'm never leaving you again, Marcus whispered, holding her tightly. Robert approached Marcus with a mixture of relief and satisfaction. Welcome back to the world, my friend. Robert, I don't have words to thank you for everything you've done. You saved my life and protected my daughter when I couldn't. You would have done the same for me and my girls. That's what family does. The word family resonated deeply with Marcus. Over the past months, the Thompson family had indeed become his family, bound together by shared adversity and genuine love. In the weeks that followed, the full scope of Detective Williams's corruption was revealed. 12 innocent men were identified as victims of his false testimony scheme, and all their cases were reopened. The FBI's investigation led to additional arrests of officers who had been complicit in the conspiracy. Marcus's civil rights lawsuit against the city, which David had continued pursuing during his incarceration, resulted in a settlement of $2.3 million. The money provided Marcus with financial security he had never imagined possible. What are you going to do with this settlement? Robert asked during one of their Saturday dinners, which had resumed with even greater appreciation for their friendship. First, I'm going to finish my engineering degree like we talked about. Then, I want to start a foundation to help other families who have been victims of wrongful prosecution. That's a wonderful idea. I'd like to help with that foundation. We could work together to reform the system from both sides, legal and community support. Marcus smiled, thinking about how a simple act of kindness in helping two lost little girls had led to this moment. You know, Robert, when I stopped to help Emma and Sophia that night, I never imagined it would change all our lives so dramatically. The best acts of kindness are the ones we do without expecting anything in return. You helped my daughters because it was the right thing to do. Everything that followed was just the universe returning that kindness to you. 6 months later, Marcus graduated summa cum laude with his engineering degree. The entire Thompson family attended his graduation, cheering loudly when his name was called. Zoe, now 9 years old, proudly told everyone around her, "That's my daddy, and he can do anything." Marcus had been accepted to a prestigious engineering firm in Atlanta, but he also maintained his plumbing business, employing several formerly incarcerated men who were seeking second chances. The Marcus Washington Foundation, co-founded with Robert Thompson, had already helped exonerate 3 additional innocent men and provided support to dozens of families affected by wrongful prosecution. Robert had taken a leave of absence from the bench to focus on criminal justice reform, working closely with Marcus to advocate for changes in police procedures and witness testimony protocols. Their unlikely friendship had evolved into a powerful partnership for justice. On the first anniversary of Marcus's exoneration, the two families gathered for a celebration dinner. As they watched Zoe, Emma, and Sophia playing together in the backyard, Robert and Marcus reflected on their journey. "A year ago, I was sitting in a jail cell, convinced my life was over," Marcus said. "Now look at us." "A year ago, I thought I was just a judge doing my job," Robert replied. "I never realized how broken the system could be until I saw what happened to you. This experience has taught me that real justice requires more than just following the law. It requires fighting for what's right." "You know what the best part is?" Marcus said, watching Zoe laugh with her friends. "Zoe has grown up seeing that there are good people in the world who will stand up for justice, regardless of race or background. She's learned that kindness and courage can overcome even the darkest circumstances. And my girls have learned the same lesson. They've seen that we judge people by their character and actions, not by their circumstances or appearance." As the evening wound down, Zoe approached the 2 men with a drawing she had made. It showed 5 stick figures holding hands: Marcus and Zoe, Robert, Emma, and Sophia, standing in front of a house with the words, "Our family," written at the top. "This is us," Zoe announced proudly. "We're all family now." Marcus looked at Robert, both men understanding the profound truth in a child's simple drawing. What had begun as a chance encounter on a busy road had grown into something much larger, a bond forged by adversity, strengthened by justice, and sealed by love. The story of Marcus Washington and Judge Robert Thompson became a symbol of hope in a divided world, proving that kindness, courage, and unwavering faith in what's right can overcome even the most daunting obstacles. Their friendship demonstrated that true justice isn't just about laws and courtrooms. It's about good people standing up for each other when it matters most. Years later, when people would ask Marcus about that night when he first helped two lost little girls, he would smile and say, "Sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply stop and help someone in need. You never know how that act of kindness might change not just their life, but your own." And in that truth, the real magic of their story lived on, inspiring others to choose compassion over indifference, courage over fear, and hope over despair, one act of kindness at a time. Mrs. Rodriguez brings her by every evening, and apparently, she's holding up remarkably well. That little girl has your strength. The knowledge that Zoe was safe and cared for gave Marcus the strength to endure his situation, but he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had been deliberately targeted. 2 wrongful arrests in 6 months seemed like more than coincidence. "David, do you think someone is setting me up?" These arrests keep happening, and each time the evidence falls apart under scrutiny. David had been wondering the same thing. "I've been thinking about that. Let me do some investigating into the witnesses and see if there are any connections." As Marcus awaited trial, Robert Thompson was conducting his own investigation. Using his connections in the legal community, he began looking into the pattern of cases involving Marcus. What he discovered would shock him and ultimately expose a conspiracy that went far deeper than anyone had imagined. The stage was set for a legal battle that would test not only Marcus's innocence, but also the strength of his friendship with Robert Thompson. The true test of their bond was about to begin, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Marcus's freedom, Zoe's future, and the integrity of the justice system they both believed in. As Marcus and Zoe prepared to go home that evening, Robert made a decision that would have far-reaching consequences. "Marcus, I want you to consider something. This arrest, even though the charges were dropped, could affect your business. People might hear about it and make assumptions. I think you should consider hiring David Chun to help you clear your record completely and possibly pursue legal action against the city for wrongful arrest." Marcus shook his head. "Robert, I can't afford a lawyer like that. I'm just grateful to be free and to have Zoe back. What if I told you there was a way to not only clear this up, but also help you get back on track with your education and business goals? What if this injustice could become an opportunity for positive change?" Marcus looked at his friend with curiosity and gratitude, not knowing that Robert was already formulating a plan that would benefit not just Marcus, but also serve Robert's own sense of justice and his desire to make a positive impact on the world around him. The seeds of a deeper friendship and partnership were being planted, watered by shared adversity and mutual respect. What would grow from this foundation would surprise both men and change their lives in ways they never expected. As Marcus prepared his estimate that evening, he reflected on how his act of kindness had led to this opportunity. He thought about the fortune cookie that had predicted his compassion would be rewarded when he least expected it. What Marcus still didn't realize was that his life was about to become intertwined with Judge Thompson's in ways that went far beyond plumbing repairs. The foundation of trust and respect being built between these two men would soon be tested in ways neither of them could imagine. Judge Thompson, for his part, found himself increasingly impressed with Marcus not just as a person, but as a father. Watching Marcus talk about Zoe, seeing the love and dedication in his eyes, reminded Robert of his own devotion to his daughters. He began to see Marcus as someone whose path he wanted to continue crossing. The stage was being set for a relationship that would challenge both men's assumptions, test their character, and ultimately prove that sometimes the most meaningful connections come from the most unexpected circumstances. Is still at large, and there may be more questioning as the investigation continues. Also, Mr. Washington, I have to ask, have you ever been arrested before? No, sir, never. I've had a clean record my whole life, Marcus answered honestly. What Marcus didn't know was that this case was about to take a turn that would connect his life to people he'd never met, in ways he could never imagine. The robbery he'd been questioned about was just the beginning of a journey that would test everything he believed about justice, prejudice, and the power of human kindness. As Marcus left the police station that morning, cleared of suspicion but still shaken by the experience, He had no way of knowing that his path was about to intersect with a respected judge's family in a way that would change multiple lives forever. The seeds of an extraordinary story had been planted, and soon Marcus Washington would discover that sometimes the most unexpected encounters can lead to the most profound transformations, both for himself and for others whose lives seemed completely separate from his own.